Hello, sir.
Hi.
Okay, so yeah, that check is definitely 100% fraud.
Yeah. Here's a short list of things photographers have to deal with nowadays. 1. We have a strange economy. 2. We have to photograph people with social distancing rule. If you're not a landscape photographer, this is complicated.
This is the way.
This is the way.
A global pandemic, of course. Increased house pricing and many other challenges. But now let's just add one more. Scammers are back. Yeah. And that's not all. I also got scammed. Let me explain. So it was March 11, 2021. It was a cloudy day in Montreal and I'm working on an event coming up at the end of the month. It's busy for me. I received an email at 7:21 a.m. from Elizabeth Pearson inquiring for a wedding photography event being held in Montreal on the 16th of April 2021, so about a month afterwards. So I am a photographer, yes, and I do portrait and sports, but I only do weddings for friends and past clients normally. I don't really offer that service as I don't like weddings that much. So it's kind of strange that I get an inquiry for that. Plus, just to add to that, weddings are not that common nowadays in Quebec and Montreal, even with the vaccine rollout. But I do know a couple of Pearsons, and I'm a curious person, so I answered back at 9:32 a.m. the following message. And after sending that email, I get the following response. Red flag. I didn't ask for that. Like, no questions about seeing my wedding work. That's actually not publicly available unless you search really hard. How I work, what they get, etc, etc. That's weird. Let's just pitch a random price for now and then see how they behave. And on March 16th, from there, radio silence. Strange, right? But being a keen businessman, you follow up on any leads. What's important is to close.
Coffee's for closers only.
So on March 16th, I basically asked Elizabeth, what's up? 7 days later, Elizabeth responds. So my red flags are being raised like super high, like sky high. But I'm curious to know how their system works, right? Because at this point, I'm 99% sure it's fraud. And by doing this, I could help someone out. So let's just get after it. So Tuesday, March 3rd at 11:23 p.m. And it's important to remember that specific time, 11:23 p.m. I happily gave my studio address so now they can book her in advance to avoid any form of disappointment. That just rolls off the tongue, right? I cannot wait to receive the certified check from Elizabeth Pearson. The next morning, on March 5th, Wednesday at 7:21 a.m. Montreal time, I received another strange email. Wait, hold up a minute. Wait, what? Your payroll accountant made the payment? Oh, I never knew I had a new job. I thought I had quit my accounting job already. And let's just call the payroll accountant now Jim for clarity. I'm thinking about it, Jim must work super hard, like way too hard. I sent him the info the night before 11:23 p.m., right? Right before midnight, and he sent the payment before 8 a.m. already? Man, Jim needs a break. Let him sleep, damn it. He works so hard. Then he sent me too much money, like 5 times more. Jeez, Elizabeth, let my Jimmy sleep, damn it. Well, also, Ellie seems to be quite embarrassed by the fact that Jim made a mistake, and she even asked me to keep another $50, woohoo, for my embarrassment or for my troubles. That'll feed my child for a month. She thanks you. So after Elizabeth sent me that email, things got even weirder. I get a text from a certain John Bauman. Now, who's John Bauman, right, you ask? Well, I never heard of his name before he texted me, actually. And John introduces himself as Elizabeth Pearson's fiance. He asked me to check out the email Elizabeth just sent. He asked me also to read the message and reply back ASAP to capture the payment. John, you're one demanding client. Like, how about a little, hey, how's it going first? No? Bad manners? So 4 days later, I then reply, oh yes, John Bauman. I recall talking to you with Elizabeth, which never happened. I didn't receive the email. Can you resend? Now, I actually did receive the email, but I'm just seeing how fully automated they are and if they have any flexibility in their scheme. You know, just to waste the time a little. But to push the scam in motion a little further, I responded to the email sent on March 24th with the following. Oh, you can count on me. I will send you all the money back. Just tell me when and where. Your fiance also texted me. Very handsome, by the way. You're a lucky girl. And also at this point, I'm wondering do they know I'm trolling them? Now, Elizabeth writes back to me via another thread of emails that I got a larger amount than I agreed to, and I need to send the money back again via electronic transfer to the decorator, who's getting a total of $3,407 or $3,407 for a wedding of 9 people. I actually need to know how she does her sales because she's amazing.
Coffee's for closers only.
March 30th, 2021. The next day, John becomes a little more polite. He says now that I received the check and he's working on it. Dear John, have you been raiding the chemical cabinet again? Now it's time to show a little. It's always a time for a good Bane gift.
Of course.
March 31st, 2021. The check is coming, so I'm told, but I'm not at the studio, so UPS has to try again. Now 8 days later, at 11:11, I get an email from Elizabeth. Now I'm wondering, oh no, is the wedding canceled? Because the restrictions are even tighter now in Quebec. Oh, of course not. They sent the check payment via UPS. What? They actually did it? They sent it? That's crazy. But it gets even weirder from now on. The checks arrive at my Montreal studio, and it's strange. The envelope is coming from Toronto. And if you didn't know, Montreal and Toronto are actually 2 different cities and are located in 2 different provinces in Canada. By car, it would take you about 5.5 hours to get from Montreal to Toronto or vice versa. Strange. But even weirder, the check that I sent is from a company located also in Toronto, exactly Mississauga, but I won't reveal the exact location because it's probably an pending investigation. But hold up a minute, we're in the middle of a pandemic and interprovincial traveling is quite obnoxious since Ontario is currently under lockdown. But hey, money is money, right? April 7th, 2021, the very next day, John comes back like a heart attack. Yay! He asks about the status of the check with these exact words. Sure, John. Imagine words got good. Very good. I respond, I received the check. Yay! Big gift. Now I will send it to my lawyer, who will then send it to my accountant. And now I have to pause the video a bit. This is probably a mistake from my part. I should have just said I cashed it, even though I wouldn't have done it anyways, just to make me push this camera a little further, because that kind of stopped the actual flow of things. But let's go back in the story and you'll see where it ends up. It's been a few days and man, Elizabeth and John are not worried about their money. The decorator also. I'm worrying that the wedding won't happen because of my lawyer and my accountant. God damn it, guys, hurry up! I now follow up with Elizabeth. And today, as we're the April 15th, I never got a response back from Elizabeth. So I'm guessing that they just pulled out because they sensed it was being too iffy or too sketchy. Coming from scammers, it's impressive. But meanwhile, I did some investigating on my part. So I first contacted my local police department via the internet, because of the pandemic, of course. But they were kind of useless. They just advised me to contact the bank, and I also tried to reach the federal level of the police in Canada called the RCMP, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and their website is a little clunky, but I still pushed through for the sake of reporting to these people. Since I can't rely on the police, I had to take matters into my own hands. As I said earlier, the check was sent from a company located in Ontario, and I gave him a call. I kept the company information blurred to protect the integrity of the probable current investigation, as I'm not sure where it stands, but let's not take a chance here and not let's ruin everything for everyone.
How can I help you?
Hi, my name is Yvens, and I received a check from your company, but I'm not sure if it's valid. Is it possible to...
It's fraudulent.
I'm sorry?
It's fraudulent.
It's
It
fraudulent.
would be fraudulent, yeah.
Do you get a lot of these?
No. It's fraudulent. It's been going on for a long time, and the Peel Regional Police have a file open with it.
Okay.
You can contact the police with it if you wish.
I called him to ask about the check I received, and my suspicions were immediately met by the person online. She immediately told me it's fraud and I should contact the local police force. Poor Jim, man. Having to deal with the lack of sleep, Elizabeth asking for stupid checks like in the split second, and also, dealing with frauds, man. Then the bank on the check is called the Royal Bank of Canada, which is the largest bank in, you guessed it, Canada. I asked to speak to the fraud department to know what do I do with this. They advised the following.
Received a, okay. So you received a check?
Yes. So let me explain to you the situation. So I have a business, and I received an email inquiring about my services, and basically what they did is that they quote me for a price, then they sent me a check for that amount, but then they added they added like 5 times more, and asked me to basically send them back some money.
Oh, and then send them back to you?
Yeah. Well, so yes, so they send me a certified check. Well, it's certified. It's not certified at all. But they sent me an amount, and they told me, "Oh, we sent you too much money. Can you send us some back, please?" And voila, I have the check in front of me. I didn't cash it, so.
Okay, good. So this is a quite unique situation. So I'm just going to quickly go talk to my superiors, all right?
Yeah, sure.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Okay, so yeah, that check is definitely 100% fraud.
Yeah.
So we're going to need you to actually have to go to the branch and report that, okay?
Okay.
Because they are actually, if you did deposit the check, they would have been actually able to get into your account and try to take more, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we want you to go to the bank and report it, to the actual branch and report it, okay?
Okay.
And take the check with you.
Okay. I have a question though. Let's say someone else falls into the same situation. Because will the bank be able to flag it?
Well, it's not more or less if the check is real. It's more that they have like it's called like they have a different plan ahead. So they gave you that money so you would be able to try to send them.
Mm-hmm.
So send them back so they can be able to get your card number and be able to try to access your card.
Okay.
So it's nothing to do with the check itself. It's actually to do with the security of them wanting to try to get into your account.
By sending some money back?
By you sending money back, yes. Well, it really depends of the check, because that check could possibly be used for thousands of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like that check could have been from criminal enterprises that just sent you a check. It can be from a lot of different things.
Okay.
So that check may help like investigations for different crimes.
Okay. Now let's take a closer look at the check. Now every check that you see has some important information available on it. Well, at least in Canada. You can know with the very public information, the bank that it originates from, the transit number, which is the physical branch of the client, and the account number. So with my ninja hands and a little bit of Google, the branch was actually a real branch that you can see from the photo. Now about the checks, it looks and feels real because it's actually a real check. Back in the days, I used to be a banker and saw my fair share of checks moving through. Plus, before being a full-time photographer, I was a CPA and worked, of course, in accounts payable. I cannot call myself an expert, but I've been through the ringer and seen hundreds of checks. But there are issues with the check that we're seeing and what makes it quote-unquote certified. Their certification means that the bank has verified that the checks, with the check being printed and issued, the funds are usually removed immediately from the account, and it's usually stamped and signed by an officer of the bank, in this case either a cashier or a manager, depending on the latitudes the people have. Back in the days, I'm not sure if it's still applicable, but you could also call the branch and ask for a verification that the funds are legitimate and the officer that signed is actually true. If you're unsure, always go see your bank and ask some questions. It's better to look like a fool than to actually be one. As you can see from the picture, there's none of that, but an unnamed source did confirm that the checks are actually real and points to a US account and the check is in Canadian dollars. So you do the math here. And as we heard from my phone call earlier in the video, the company is actually also real. So in recap, how does the fraud work? I call it a pay forward scam. First and foremost, how did Elizabeth and John manage to get their hands on the checks? Well, the checks were either stolen or lost. That's why the checks are actually real, because they are actually real and they're legitimate checks printed from the bank. Then they find a potential victim in an industry where the regulations are low and people are self-employed and directing a large amount of cash. K-Life photography, right? Then they test the waters by contacting a large number of people and see who responds from there. They follow the steps that you can see from my case or all the emails you saw previously. That's the approach But the tactic here is pressure. Time pressure to be exact. They want to make sure that the date is close enough that it will pressure you into spreading the cash or sending the cash as soon as possible. With that pressure to close so fast, your BS filter isn't as tight, meaning a well-intentioned person would send them cash ASAP to make sure to book. So don't be a fish and think about who's getting paid here. You should also have noticed by now that they simply ignore all my requests to book or to talk to someone on the phone. I never book anyone basically before talking to them, and Eli and John were a good case. Eli and John probably didn't even speak to me due to the fact that they're probably not from Canada or the US, or else they know that Montreal and Toronto's are mortal enemies. Now, how do you know it was fraud? First, as I mentioned, these people do not talk on the phone. They operate completely by text and email, making it difficult to uncover who they actually really are. A lack of personalization also. Don't forget that these cameras operate in a volume game. They blast thousands of email and text. You're just one cog and they can't bother to customize the messages for you. You'll probably never see your name anywhere inside of those messages. Also, the English will be poor. Not that everyone speaks with the sharpness of Shakespeare, but you will read typos, mistakes, and sentence structures that makes no sense for a native English speaker like Elizabeth Pearson should. The biggest thing is that they aren't able to have congruent information in the location. For example, I'm from Montreal, but you can insert your own city here. The email IP address points to Kansas, the checks come from a manufacturing company in Ontario, the post address from the USPS package come from Toronto, and the number that John Bowen used to text is from Alberta, even further away in Canada. This is a huge mess and a good indicator of fraud. Also, common sense. Have you had a client that doesn't want you to know how you work, how they find you, and be comforted by your process? It's weird, right? And from my research, this is a new strain of scam, but try to copy and paste the message you receive on Google and see if you find the exact same messages. And if you find someone else that received the exact same one, well, you have a hint. I also added the emails that I received today on Reddit so they can be found by search engines. Now, I need your help. And together we can actually hurt the chances of scamming one of our colleagues. And here's how. Go with the fraud process. Yeah, it's controversial, but hear me out.
There are two reasons why I'm asking you this. These crimes are underreported. We need more people reporting these crimes and gathering more data to help to stop those people. The envelope they sent me did come from Canada. That means Elizabeth and John have either a fencer in Canada, meaning someone that can help them complete the fraud, or are local, but I have my doubts about that, especially when looking at their English. If we all give this evidence to authorities, they'll eventually notice and perhaps do something about it. Second, let's waste our time. There's a reason why Elizabeth and John are trying so often that they can't bother to add my name to any messages out there. It's because it works. They don't have to work harder, it just works. Well enough that it's worth doing over and over again until they catch the next fish. Elizabeth and John are volume-based fraudsters. If we keep wasting their time by making them spend cash for UPS envelopes, burning through the stash of stolen checks, they'll eventually give up.
And if any of that didn't convince you, well, do it for Jim, man. Do it for Jim. To boot, it only takes also 5 minutes of your day and feels like you're doing God's work. So don't be too stringent and play nice here. Let them believe you're being reeled in, and don't share sensitive information about your home, like your home address or basically your personal phone number. And as a reminder for anyone that will, don't ever send me cash. Never, ever, ever, ever. I eventually decided to give the documentation to the investigating officer as referred by the company who lost their checks. I felt that this is the best way to approach this, as the bank was already made aware of the issues with that account. I also copy and pasted the emails in Reddit, as Google seems to be quite good at reading those. So if ever you take any emails you receive that you find suspicious, do the same. Copy and paste some strings of text, dump it in Google, and see what you get. Whew. So, do you know of any other scams that you're aware of in the photography community? Let them know in the comments below and share this with your wedding photographer friends or maybe portrait photographers. And I hope that the adventure that I just shared with you was actually useful to you. And please consider subscribing if you haven't done so for more content like these. I left a couple of links to fraud prevention websites and how to spot them. And this has been YvensB, Montreal advertising and portrait photographer, wishing you good luck. And together, let's light the world. Cheers.